Hey Esters, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in today's video, I am going to be talking about the book A Little Princess. So I read this book like a couple years back and I really enjoyed it and I wanted to reread it. It is one of the sweetest stories. Obviously it's a classic. It's just that amazing. So I'm going to be sharing quotes and favorite parts about it and why I think you should definitely read this book. It is such a heartwarming, sweet story. So let's get started. So it's the story of Sarah Crewe, the little princess who triumphs over loneliness, poverty, and cruelty, is as powerful and exciting today as when it was first published in 1905. Wise beyond her years and compassionate beyond her circumstances, Sarah keeps her spirit up by imagining herself a princess. By refusing to give up and continuing to believe in herself, Sarah makes her own magic. Okay, so first off, let's define a princess. A princess is someone who isn't just beautiful on the outside, but it's her character, it's her personality, it's everything she lives for. It's someone who's kind and compassionate, someone who cares about others, not someone who's like all bratty, self-absorbed. No, that is not what a princess is. A true princess is someone who has integrity and character and they care about other people, even in hard times, even in rags. I don't want to spoil the story, but they still care about others. They don't stop helping people. They don't stop helping people before themselves. That is what a true princess is, and that's what being a princess is all about. And I think the main character, Sarah, in this story, she exemplifies being a princess in the best possible ways. So in this story, she starts off rich, but then she becomes destitute because her father, he'd put all of his money into these diamond mines, thinking he'd become wealthier off of it. And instead, sadly, for a time, everyone thought it backfired, and he ended up dying of an illness, also thinking he lost all his money. But Sarah didn't stay in rags and being poor for long because the diamond mines actually did come true. And unbeknownst to Sarah, there was someone trying to find her and trying to find Captain Crewe's lost little girl from searching different places, trying to find her. And they finally did find her and they changed her life. So in her poverty, she had become a maid instead of a top pupil, and she was also currently living in the attic, which was super cold, super desolate, like no one hardly ever went up there. Well, next door from the school, an elderly gentleman moved in, and it was the talk of the school. Everyone was curious about him, and he came from India. And his servant just so happened to have a monkey who one day climbed into the window of Sarah's little attic room, and Sarah helped him back to his owner. And that is how the servant found out about Sarah's situation, and with his master's approval, he completely changed her room. And once, of course, he realized she's the long-lost Sarah we've been looking for, well, let me back up a sec. So the monkey had run away again because he was quite the mischievous little monkey. So he ran away to Sarah's attic, and then she obviously thought, oh, I have to bring him back. And then she brought him back to his owner. Well, she was welcomed inside, and the master of the house realized this is Sarah, this is the long-lost Sarah we've been looking for. She was back with riches and wealth, and she even had her fellow maid employed as her maid, treated way better than she was ever in the school. So yes, I literally love happy endings. They are just the sweetest, and this book was so heartwarming. Of course, going from being in riches and being popular and all the other people loving you to rags and being shunned and people boasting about how much better their lives are than you. Especially there was one character that was awfully jealous of her, which I'll talk about that in a minute. And so just her going from like being rich and then honestly getting the feel for like what it is to not to just lose everything and how devastating that can be. And then regaining her wealth in the form of the kind Indian gentleman next door. Here are some of my favorite parts from the story. I love the part where Captain Crew said, "Are you learning me by heart, little Sarah?" And her response is so cute. She said, "No, I already know you by heart. You're inside my heart." It was just such a sweet, wholesome moment. I love that in books. Like, they're so sweet. I also love how innocent Sarah is. Like, for example, her doll, Emily. She keeps imagining Emily like moving around when she's not there, and she always tells her friends like, "Oh, Emily got back to her position before we could see her." It was just so sweet. Also, I really love how she creates stories so well and how she's so motherly to the younger children, and they honestly love her for it. I also love how compassionate she is with people who aren't treated as well, like the maid Becky, who ultimately became her best friend, and who she let become her maid when she became wealthy again to give Becky a better life. Because honestly, when Sarah lost all of her wealth, she really got to experience what it was being poor and not having all of those fine things and clothes and a nice fireplace and comfy bedding. She didn't get to experience all those nice things. And so she realized really what Becky had been going through. And so giving Becky a chance to, yes, still be a servant, but live such a better life was such a sweet thing to do. Like, it was just, I mean, they were best friends, but still, it was so sweet of Sarah to do that. And I mean, my imagination takes over and I think of how Becky's reaction to finding out, like, I can be a servant under my best friend. Like, this is amazing. I really love that. I really, really love that. I also love in the story where Sarah said, "It's true, I do pretend to be like a princess. I pretend to be like a princess so I can behave like one." That's what I'm saying. Her character, her personality, she's a real princess. The wealth or the rags, it didn't affect her. She stayed with that humility and that compassion and all of those characteristics that make her her. She kept those. The wealth, whether she was wealthy or poor, that didn't affect her. That is what a real true princess is. I also love how in hard times, because I mean, everyone has a coping mechanism, and in hard times especially, her coping mechanism was her imagination, such as when her father passed away, or when she just got into hard times being the maid or being a maid and really struggling, just not maybe going hungry some nights, not having enough food, and her imagination kept her going. I also love how many biblical references A Little Princess actually has. It mentions the story of Abraham's wife, her name changing from Sarai to Sarah, because Sarah knows she's not a real princess, but her name means princess. It was her goal to always act like a princess, being kind and generous towards others. One of my favorite things that Sarah talked about was even though she was in rags and tatters, she was still a princess on the inside. Whether she was wealthy or in rich clothing, it's easy to be a princess when you have rich clothing and you're wealthy and everyone looks up to you and people always want to be your friend in your wealth and luxury. But what really matters is when you're a princess, no matter what, when you're a princess, even when nobody is watching, even when nobody sees you, you're still a princess. And you're a princess for the things that matter, for the right things. So at one point in the story, when Sarah was in rags and tatters, she had an expression on her face as if none of it affected her, as if she was above all of that because she was using her imagination. But that is exactly how walking with Jesus is, because you're seeing things through his eyes, and it makes it easier to handle when people are mean or hurtful. Because when people said mean things to Sarah Crew, she hardly heard it because her mind was somewhere else. Well, I hope you enjoyed A Little Princess as much as I do, and if you have already read it, please drop a comment on your favorite part. I would love to read them. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications, and I'll see you next time. Bye!